Robocop's suit is everything that old-school movie magic is known for. It's pretty much a fusion of sweat, engineering brilliance, and creative determination that ends up shining on screen. I still remember that moment in 1987 when this hulking cyborg cop stormed through bullets and corporate red tape, defying everything in his path. However, this iconic look came with a lot of headaches for the cast and crew. The story behind it, how they rushed to finish the armor, how Peter Weller nearly melted in the Detroit heat, how the crew improvised solutions on the fly, shows just how tough it can be to rely on practical effects. In this video, we will explore everything there is to explore about the Robocop suit, from its chaotic beginnings on Paul Verhoeven's set to every last detail like the fiberglass shell, the hidden Tygon tubes, the nutty behind-the-scenes issues, and so much more. So without further delay, let's get this started. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. A suit not ready when shooting began. Robocop's production ran into major timing issues. The effects team, led by practical effects legend Rob Bottin, famous for The Thing and certain Star Wars creatures, spent months designing multiple suits for the film. But they hit one setback after another. These suits had to be large, articulate, and distinctly robotic. Bottin's people hustled to finish in time, but the day arrived when production needed to start principal photography and the suits still weren't ready. Director Paul Verhoeven chose to shoot everything else first, scenes without Robocop in full armor, plus inserts that didn't show the suit. The second they got the okay from Bottin, they jumped into filming the real Robocop sequences. But trouble started the moment Peter Weller tried the armor on. He had gone through extensive movement training, studying how to adopt a deliberate mechanical style. But it all went out the window because the actual suit's weight and shape locked him into stiff, awkward poses. He had trouble walking, let alone striking fluid robotic moves. If they'd had the suit ready in pre-production, he could have practiced in it for weeks. Instead, he had to figure it out on the spot, in front of cameras, often on scorching sets. Months of planning gave way to real-world problems, like the suit's thick gloves preventing him from performing simple gestures. The crew once needed 50 takes for a single shot of Robocop catching car keys. Weller often recalls losing 3 pounds a day due to heat, even with a system of tubing inside the suit intended to cool him. At least he got a break whenever they shot him driving. The bottom half of the armor didn't fit in a normal police cruiser, so he wore just the top portion and boxers below the waist. This borderline comedy of errors was part of a larger puzzle, the quest to make Robocop look unstoppable while also preserving the actor's sanity. Bulky, hot, and impractical, but legendary. The original Robocop armor wasn't built for comfort. Fiberglass panels, foam rubber underlayers, screws, and hinges turned it into a literal shell around Weller's body. The production did everything it could to lighten the load. Bottin's team discovered that the suit was so massive, simple tasks like walking around a corner or opening a car door became Herculean chores. They had to rework certain angles and shot setups to accommodate the suit's slow, deliberate movements. It got so hot inside that Weller eventually demanded an internal air conditioning unit, a patchwork solution that sometimes worked and sometimes didn't. All these nightmares on set might make you wonder, was it worth the headache? For many fans, the answer is absolutely yes. Robocop became an instant classic, praised for its black humor, ultra-violence, and pointed satire of corporate greed and law enforcement. The suit is a star in its own right. Its clunky, almost tank-like aesthetic sells the idea that this is a cyborg, not just a guy in tight body armor. The 1987 film exudes that tangible, heavy, real-world feeling you can't always get from CGI. Why practical effects matter. Modern movies often bypass big problems with a simple solution: we'll fix it in post. That phrase acknowledges how advanced digital effects have become. If an actor's costume doesn't look right, or if the lighting is off, or if there's some glitch in continuity, they figure the VFX team can clean it up. But in 1987, that option was limited. Robocop's success depended on a physical suit, built by hand. Everyone had to figure out the logistics, no matter how frustrating. Audiences feel the difference. A real weighty costume transmits authenticity. The reflective surfaces capture actual lights on set. The scuffs and dents appear where the actor physically interacts with walls, and the silhouette feels like something that truly exists in space. Battine's team spent countless hours building molds, testing materials, painting multiple layers, and engineering every pivot point. That work wasn't glamorous, but it gave Verhoeven's film an everlasting edge. Robocop's unstoppable presence felt genuine. Many fans blame the shift to streamlined digital suits for the forgettable look of certain modern blockbusters. The 2014 Robocop remake, for instance, gave us a black, sleek design that resembled advanced military gear or Batman's tactical armor from The Dark Knight. It wasn't a total failure. Designer Rob Duncan did incorporate some practical elements, but the new suit lacked the character of the original. It looked too slim, too flexible, more like a fancy tactical jumpsuit than a half-human, half-robot exoskeleton. The critics hammered that approach for being unoriginal. The original Robocop soared because it had weight. It screamed industrial. You could buy that Alex Murphy's shredded remains were slotted into the colossal metal body. That's the spark that modern CGI sometimes struggles to replicate, especially when the creative team decides to fix everything in post rather than giving the actor real armor to interact with. A brief look at Aronofsky's involvement, or lack thereof. Darren Aronofsky, now known for cerebral works like Black Swan or Requiem for a Dream, had once been attached to direct a Robocop project. It never got off the ground. Studio politics, budget wrangling, and creative differences often kill these types of big reboots. Though he might have offered a unique spin, we'll never know how he would have handled the practical effects or whether the suit would have kept that bulky industrial style. It remains a what-if scenario in Hollywood rumor mills. The mini-suits and their deaths. No single Robocop suit existed for every scene. Multiple versions were made for the original film, and they got destroyed, scorched, or hammered during production. The suits typically relied on fiberglass for the outer shell. The black sections were foam rubber or high-impact plastics. The Robo-Cable armor from the TV miniseries Robocop Prime Directives introduced carbon fiber to cut weight. They didn't do that in 1987, so the first generation was heavier. Over time, repeated modifications trimmed the heft down to around 55 to 65 pounds. That might sound insane for a costume, but it was still an improvement from the earliest prototypes. They built 7 complete robo-suits for the 1987 film. Some had specialized roles, like the fireproof one for the gas station explosion scene. Another pair, often called the third act suits, displayed bullet holes, cracks, and general carnage from Robocop's showdown with ED-209 and the entire Detroit Police Department. The effects crew used drills and sculpting tools to create realistic bullet gouges, then threaded about 30 Tygon tubes inside so fake hydraulic fluid could spray out of the holes. The suits ended up looking ravaged, reflecting the intense punishment Robocop endures in that part of the movie. Later sequels, like Robocop 2 and Robocop 3, followed a similar pattern. They reused certain molds for chest damage, including a signature hole in the heart area with smaller bullet holes around it. Robocop Prime Directives kept that tradition going. Over time, a continuity developed for damaged Robocop. Even the short-lived TV series built new suits with unique details, such as a one-off chest dent after being slammed by a snowplow in the Officer Missing episode. The thing is, each new movie or show often destroyed these suits. They had to keep making fresh ones. Armor cracked, the paint got chipped, the torso had giant bullet holes. By the end of a shoot, the suits sometimes looked too rough for the next production, so the props team would mold new ones. That cyclical creation and destruction gave each iteration of Robocop a distinct look. The suit's colors. We typically remember Robocop's armor as metallic gray and bluish silver, but it can vary dramatically based on lighting, paint layering, or the specific movie. In real life, the suits sometimes read as green. That's because the special photoreactive paint can appear different to the naked eye versus how it looks on camera. The crew wanted a metallic effect under stage lights, so they used multiple layers. The first and third movies lean more toward a standard gray. Robocop 2's suit, however, pushes it into a bluish tint, which some viewers call plasticky blue. Robocop Prime Directives more or less returned to a gray scheme, except the armor was heavily battle damaged. The 2014 remake, as mentioned, tried a black scheme with a more modern vibe. Peter Weller famously said that the first suit presented serious mobility issues, which they partially resolved by the midpoint of shooting. By Robocop 2, the design allowed him and the stunt guys a bit more freedom. They refined the paint job to highlight certain angles and gave it a more polished finish. Putting it on and taking it off. Getting in and out of the suit wasn't easy. Peter Weller's earliest suit-ups dragged on for 9 or 10 hours, partly because the costume wasn't finished until production was already underway. By the time Robocop 2 began, the process took around an hour. Sean Smith, the chief RoboSuit handler for Robocop Prime Directives, could get it done in half an hour if everything lined up. Even then, the suit was bolted together. If an actor wanted out, the crew had to appear with power drills to remove sections. There was no casual stepping out for a quick bathroom break. The production team made improvements across each film. They introduced better hinges, adjusted the foam rubber in the undersuit, and used simpler fastenings. By Prime Directives, they shaped the armor specifically for Paige Fletcher's body, and for Maurice Dean Wint when he portrayed Robocable. Maurice Dean Wint stood a good deal taller than Fletcher, so the Robocable armor had longer limbs and a bigger midsection. Although it came from the same molds, it needed modifications. They also painted it black with silver highlights, matching the menacing vibe they wanted for that character. The helmet and its limits. Robocop's helmet is integral to his overall appearance. It hides all but his mouth and jaw, giving him a fearsome, machine-like expression. However, it's a nightmare for the performer's senses. Peripheral vision remains somewhat intact, but looking up and down is tough, especially for close-range tasks. Hearing is also poor because the helmet encloses the actor's ears. As a result, someone usually guided Robocop on set, so he wouldn't walk into the scenery. Another interesting fact was that the prosthetic makeup for scenes where Robocop has no helmet is too large to fit underneath the same helmet. If you watch carefully, you'll notice there's never a continuous shot of him removing the helmet to reveal the full-face prosthetic. Instead, the director cheats by cutting away or shooting from behind. In the original film, the question arises, where does the chin guard go? The truth is that the production team simply made it disappear between shots. The helmet pieces couldn't physically maneuver around the bulky makeup. Robocop the series addressed this oddity by making the chin guard part of the removable helmet section, so it all popped off together. Robocop Prime Directives tried another approach. The chin guard stayed attached to Robocop's face while the top half lifted away. The leg holster, a famous gimmick. Fans love that moment when Robocop's leg panel slides open, revealing his Auto 9 pistol. In the first movie, this effect required a multi-stage mechanical contraption. One cable system pushed the leg panel out, and another extended the internal holster on a track. This was always filmed in a close-up, so the crew only needed that section of the suit. The rest could be off-camera. In Robocop the series, they replicated the same effect, but added a second holster in the left leg for extra gear. The 2014 remake also used both legs for different firearms. That iconic thigh opens to reveal a weapon moment is a Robocop staple, signifying that he's part machine, part unstoppable law enforcer. The interface needle, data spike. Another fun element is the data spike. Robocop extends a sharp needle-like device from his fist to interface with computers. This piece, often called the terminal strip, was basically a fiberglass glove with a stainless steel frame and springs. The real suit glove ended at a ring on the forearm. The extended spike portion was a separate contraption, held close to the actor's wrist by an off-screen operator. It showed up in memorable ways. For instance, in the first movie, Robocop uses it to kill Clarence Boddicker, driving the spike into his throat after lying pinned under rubble. That scene reminds us that Robocop's built-in gadgets can double as lethal weapons. Robocop's prime directives. Story-wise, Alex Murphy dies in the line of duty, and OCP resurrects him as Robocop, Crime Prevention Unit 001. He's given a set of prime directives that define his actions. 1. Serve the public trust. 2. Protect the innocent. And 3. Uphold the law. They also sneak in Directive 4, which forbids him from arresting senior OCP employees. It inflicts severe pain if he tries. Dick Jones wrote that line of code specifically to protect himself. In the first movie, once the old man fires Jones, that directive no longer applies, and Robocop promptly disposes of Jones. In Robocop 2, Dr. Juliet Fax overloads him with hundreds of new directives, reducing him to a do-nothing automation who can't act for fear of violating some trivial rule. He eventually short-circuits himself to clear them all, returning to his original approach. In Robocop 3, Directive 4 was reworded to never oppose an OCP officer, but Dr. Marie Lazarus deletes it so Robocop can fight the evil rehabs. Tech advances and the dangers. In the storyline, Robocop is equipped with lightning-fast reflexes and advanced computing. He uses an onboard memory system that holds his experiences as a police officer. The tension is that he's part machine, part man. That mechanical side grants superhuman abilities, but also creates vulnerabilities. If someone reprograms him, he loses autonomy. Robocop's arsenal is pretty extensive. His main weapon is the Auto 9, concealed in his right thigh holster. He also has the data spike. By Robocop 3, he swaps out his left hand for a gun arm that boasts a 9mm machine gun, a flamethrower, and a small rocket launcher. He also gains a flight pack that helps him overcome his slow ground movement. The suit's perception modes. Robocop can zoom in for precise aim, use night vision, and rely on a targeting grid that calculates bullet trajectories. He sometimes performs ricochet shots with near-perfect accuracy. He records audio and video for later playback, which is admissible in court. This set of features helps him gather evidence and outmaneuver criminals. The suit's resilience and its limits. Alex Murphy's real flesh is integrated into a largely mechanical body. The shell is titanium laminated with Kevlar. He shrugs off most small arms fire. A gas station can blow up around him, and he'll remain operational. The visor is bulletproof and includes a protective underlayer. When it's removed, you can see that only the front of Murphy's face is organic. The back of his head is purely mechanical. Still, Robocop isn't invincible. Enough firepower will tear through his armor. Heavy caliber weapons or sustained hits can rip off limbs. In Robocop 2, Hobb manages to blow off his right hand with a Desert Eagle 44, and a strong blow to the head can scramble his brain. If his systems are drained or overloaded with electric current, he goes offline. Also, he's huge and slow, so he rarely chases suspects on foot. The suit's weight and maintenance. Robocop is super heavy. If he's disabled, it can take multiple officers to lift him. He's also reliant on mechanical upkeep and on the care of scientists like Dr. Marie Lazarus, who track his organic systems. He can't digest normal food, so they feed him a baby food-like paste to nourish his remaining organs. That dependence on specialized gear underscores how he isn't just a man in fancy armor, he's essentially a cyborg who needs both mechanical tune-ups and biological checkups. Robocop occasionally experiences nightmares or flashbacks to his previous life as Alex Murphy. That leads to dreaming when he's in a recharging mode, sometimes causing him to jerk awake or wander off if no one's monitoring him. This leftover humanity sets him apart from a simple robot. The 2014 Remake suit. Fast forward to the 2014 reboot, directed by Jose Padilla and starring Joel Kinnaman as Alex Murphy. The creative team approached the suit differently. The film acknowledges the original design by giving Robocop a silver 1.0 version at first. Then the corporation, led by Raymond Sellers, upgrades him to the 3.0 black version that looks more modern and tactical. The 1.0 suit is reminiscent of the old Robocop armor, but is still streamlined. It's not nearly as bulky as the 1987 version. The 3.0 suit is black, sleeker, and more agile. He can run fast, jump, and do a lot of stunts the old Robocop wouldn't have managed. The film also shows multiple prototypes, 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, each with different camouflage patterns, like desert, forest, navy blue, or different shapes. One even looks more like the 1.0 style, but with digital camo. They kept some practical suit elements for 2014, but supplemented them with CGI for certain sequences or transitions. The result is a functional hybrid, though many fans found it less iconic. That black design failed to make the cut among the sea of standard Hollywood futuristic armor. Murphy's rebuilt body in 2014. In the remake, Murphy's body is nearly destroyed by a car bomb. Omnicore rescues him by replacing most of his physical form with robotics, leaving only a few vital organs and his face. The story tries to explore the ethical dilemma of how much of him remains human. The film includes references to advanced scanning and targeting, plus a neural network that can override his free will. He gets two main weapons: an NI-408 sidearm in his right leg and an M2 battle rifle in the left. These weapons deploy if the system deems a threat imminent. The 1.0 suit can be penetrated by .50 caliber or bigger, and repeated hits can shred it. The 3.0 suit aims to be more advanced, though it still suffers serious damage by the end. The expanded abilities. The 2014 Robocop has top-tier reflexes, courtesy of a quantum processor. He can run at high speed, jump, scan environmental data, and track criminals through citywide CCTV. He also taps into phone signals, which ties into modern concerns about surveillance. This version tries to address the debate between corporate control and personal freedom, echoing the original's themes, but with a 21st century spin. At one point, we see that Omnicore can reduce Robocop's capacity for free choice. That underscores the central tension: a brilliant machine that's still partly human, forced to obey a corporation's protocol. The movie raises questions about how far we should go with technology that merges man and machine. Tech testing and software. The behind-the-scenes folks who built these suits across all versions relied on technology to test materials. They used specialized construction material testing software to see if fiberglass or carbon fiber could hold up under stress. They factored in the suit's final weight, durability, and how easily the actor could move. We can't forget that the original suit was basically an experiment. They'd never built something exactly like it before. They discovered the pitfalls, like near-zero mobility, and improved with each new movie or show. Prime Directives introduced carbon fiber for the RoboCable shell, dropping the weight to around 40 pounds from the original suit's 55 to 65. They shaved off every ounce they could, so the actor wouldn't collapse after a few takes. Artistic damage and the third act suits. Robocop's big final battles in each movie left him battered. The production needed new suits to show that progressive damage. The Robocop 1 third act suits had bullet holes, scorched surfaces, and dented plating. The effects team spent hours carefully placing each gouge. They hooked Tygon tubing to holes so blackish fluid could spurt out when bullets hit. Robocop 2 and 3 repeated that formula, reusing the same chest damage mold with a large hole near the heart. The TV show carried it forward, though they often tried new methods to depict damage or dents. This consistent approach to showing the suit's deterioration underscored that Robocop, though super strong, wasn't unstoppable. He might keep going, but the damage left scars on his armor. Changes that never happened. Between films, the creative team sometimes toyed with huge changes. Irvin Kershner, who directed Robocop 2, and Rob Bottin briefly talked about overhauling the suit's look. They considered radical redesigns. Bettine eventually declared, "You can't change the suit. That'd be like changing Superman's suit." They recognized that Robocop's silhouette was non-negotiable for brand identity. That brand identity shaped every sequel and adaptation. The suit had to evoke the original, so they stuck to the fundamental shape. Even when they introduced Robocable, the differences were color and proportion, but the base design was Robocop's. The suit's body structure. Underneath the armor, Robocop's skeleton is mechanical. He has a titanium composite shell over Kevlar. The black underlayer is foam rubber or plastic that clings to his limbs, simulating the in-between mechanical joints. In the story, he's bulletproof enough to wade through small arms fire, but high-powered weapons can punch through. Falls from buildings or collisions with cars might stun him, but rarely destroy him. When the visor is off, we see what's left of Alex Murphy's face. In the first film, that reveal was a big moment. He tells his wife in the second film that the face is basically a tribute to Murphy, not necessarily the real Flash. The narrative keeps it ambiguous. His hands contain actuators that can crush with about 400 pounds of force. He can definitely harm an opponent up close if needed, but that power can be a liability if he's reprogrammed or hacked. In the 2014 version, Robocop divides his loadout: the NI-408 sidearm in the right leg, the M2 battle rifle in the left. If a threat escalates, his visor snaps down, and the system automatically deploys whichever weapon is best. He also has advanced scanning to detect criminal activity across the entire city. The film shows him pulling up archived footage or scanning people's biometrics for threats. We see disclaimers from Omnicore. Your armor is state-of-the-art, but not invulnerable. 50 caliber or larger can kill you if they land enough hits. This acknowledges a more realistic approach to bullet penetration. The suit's modern aesthetic tries to look sleek and militaristic. That appealed to some watchers, but many missed the original's chunkier presence. Why fans still adore the original. Despite many sequels, spin-offs, and the 2014 remake, fans keep going back to 1987's Robocop. That version had a distinct personality. It was satirical, bloody, and over the top, but it also boasted an undercurrent of sincerity. The suit is a massive part of that. It wasn't a perfect piece of engineering behind the scenes, but it had real substance. Peter Weller's performance sold the idea of a tormented soul trapped in a mechanical body. Watching him thunder down a hallway, each step sounding like metal on concrete, reminds us how vital practical effects can be for immersion. The suit's weight is obvious in every gesture. Even Weller's frustration with the costume turned into that stiff, methodical movement. It worked perfectly for the character. The suit on television. Robocop the series, which aired in the 1990s, featured multiple suits. They used the same molds from the movies, adding or removing bits for narrative convenience. One suit had a sculpted dent for the Officer Missing episode where Robocop got slammed by a snowplow. That specific dent never appeared again because it was a unique one-off. Robocop Prime Directives, a 4-part miniseries from 2000, advanced the timeline. Robocop was older and more battle-worn. The show introduced Robocable, a similar cyborg with black armor. That suit was lighter thanks to carbon fiber. They kept many design cues from the original, but gave Robocable a different color scheme and bigger plating. In each iteration, the production juggled multiple suits for stunts and close-ups. The suits sometimes took a beating, so the crew had to patch them up or create new ones. The suit's toughest scene. One of the hairiest stunts in the original was the exploding gas station scene. They used a special fireproof suit for the stunt performer, layering fiberglass with additional protective materials. Robocop walks through flames unharmed, and the final shot is breathtaking. On set, though, everyone was nervous. Fire stunts can go wrong, but that moment has become a classic. It demonstrates Robocop's unstoppable vibe while also showing off the suit's ability to withstand extremes. Peter Weller has said he appreciates the final effect, but never wants to do it again. It took a toll on his body to sweat in a heavy shell for hours. He even got so dehydrated at times that paramedics had to check him out. But he's proud of how that role shaped his career. Robocop stands tall in film history, thanks in no small part to the armor's realistic presence. He also joked about how impossible it was to pick up small objects or sign something with those thick gloves. Scenes showing Robocop's delicate tasks often took multiple takes. The car keys fiasco is famous. Weller tries to catch them in midair, and the gloves simply won't grip. Scenes that look effortless in the final cut required a small miracle behind the camera. Deleting the suit entirely. Marvel's nanotech comparison. A modern example of suits that go to the opposite route is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Early Iron Man movies used partial practical armor. By the time Infinity War and Endgame came around, Tony Stark's suit was entirely CGI, explained by nanotech that forms around him at will. That technology choice freed the production from building suits in real life, but many viewers found the result less convincing. Scenes of the suit appearing or vanishing with perfect fluidity can feel ungrounded. Robocop's audience experiences the exact opposite. The real suit is always present. We see it move, scrape, reflect light, and weigh on the actor. That might cause headaches on set, but the authenticity endures on screen.
What's the matter, officer?
Anatomy of the suit. The standard Robocop build has an underskeleton and an outer shell. The underskeleton is the black portion, often foam rubber or plastic, shaped to represent mechanical muscles and joints. The outer shell is usually fiberglass. It's separated into around 60 pieces. Chest plate, back plate, shoulder guards, forearms, hands, thigh plates, shin guards, boots, and so on. Each piece must be attached in a specific order, sometimes requiring multiple crew members. Testing construction materials likely involved everything from stress tests to seeing if the actor could sit down. Technicians used software to gauge if certain sections might crack or hamper movement. Because of the suit's size, the production often replaced the bottom half when filming scenes of Robocop driving or sitting. The armor's physical strength and limitations. Lore-wise, Robocop can lift heavy objects and crush bones. He's also bullet-resistant, but if you watch carefully, you'll see the joint areas get hammered in each sequel. By design, that's a structural weakness. The production used that logic whenever they needed to injure or disable Robocop. It explains how a gang can temporarily overpower him with the right tactics. When a crane hook smashes his head in Robocop 2, it knocks him out. People often forget that his brain is still organic. A big enough blow can cause a concussion, scramble his memory, or even kill him if the trauma is severe. That tension makes the character interesting. He's not unstoppable in an absolute sense. He's unstoppable only when circumstances favor him. Why the suit couldn't easily change. Rob Bottin, early in the development of Robocop 2, said they might try to redesign the suit. They quickly realized that was a terrible idea. The fans recognized that shape, so changing it would be like altering Batman's cowl or Superman's emblem. You can tweak color or small details, but the fundamental silhouette had to remain. The producers saw Robocop's armor as a brand asset. Even in the 2014 remake, which aimed to modernize everything, the film included a silver 1.0 version as a nod to tradition before switching to black. That shift drew mixed reactions. Some fans liked the homage to the original, while others disliked that they abandoned it so quickly in favor of a stealth suit. Marvelous verdict. The 2014 remake wasn't universally hated. It did some interesting things, but many critics found it lacked the original's edgy satire. The design changes left fans nostalgic for that imposing silver blue tank from the 1987 film. 1987's Robocop remains a staple of 1980s cinema, lauded for its brazen commentary, over-the-top gore, and spot-on comedic jabs at corporate marketing. Without that real suit, the film's savage sense of humor and gritty tone might not have landed as forcefully. Robocop is meant to be part unstoppable machine, part tortured soul, and the armor sells that duality. It's robotic enough to remove Murphy's humanity, but clunky enough to show that he isn't entirely free. After the original launched in 1987, Robocop spawned sequels, comic books, a cartoon show, a live-action TV series, video games, and merchandise. People from all walks of life got hooked on the concept. The sequels varied in quality. Robocop 2 had some fans, but Robocop 3 was widely panned. Yet the brand endured. The TV series softened the violence and comedic edge, aiming for a more family-friendly approach. That angle never quite captured the original magic. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.